there's going to be serious action. I think primarily among those actions that President Trump has predicted, let me just use that word, is that it's now a sunshine for America. America is now back on its course again, and you know, and that, you know, kind of a situation. Let me ask your attitude first, if you will, to the President Trump's inaugural speech. He says there are about 11 million irregular immigrants in the U.S., and he hopes to do something about it.
Oh, thank you so very much. First, you know, the U.S. election is always a very big issue for the world, you know, at every 4 years. Depending on, you know, whose side you are on. You know, the Democrats and the Republicans are always slugging it out, you know, and the outcome of the election poses a big issue for the world. So most world powers, most nations of the world are always very interested in what is going on, you know, with the U.S. Being a super world power, you know. And Trump's comeback, you know, is... to some, you know, it's a surprise, and to quite a few people, it wasn't a surprise, because a few issues are always on the front burner in every American election. And then, you know, you know that this year, or rather last elections in November 6th, issues relating to immigrations was top on the agenda. Issues relating to Roe versus Wade, or what you referred to as the abortion issue, is always top on the agenda. The economy, the foreign policy, and quite a lot of these issues are always there for contestants to debate through, and then at the end of the day, the Americans will always make their choice. Now, anytime an American president is elected, the whole world is also out there watching for his inaugural speech, because that is what sets the tone for what the president of the U.S. You know, wants to do. And this year's is not an exception. Quite a lot of people all over the world watched. And you know, from the Middle East to Africa to what's going on in Asia, Mexico, China, and all of these issues, America is very much involved in all of this. And clearly, it's not out of place to have the kind of interests that the entire world had yesterday while listening to President Trump. First, it was an interesting speech, I must say, because I listened through. It was an interesting speech with respect to the manner in which it was presented, with respect to the content, and also with respect to the context, you know, of the presentation. And usually, Americans presidents over the years take their oath of office at the Capitol, equivalent of what we refer to as the National Assembly here. Yeah. I guess it's significant because it shows that this is like the law house of the United States of America. So every American president actually gets there to take their oath of office. And clearly, it was also different because over the years, American presidents take their oath of office in front of the Capitol at the open platform where you can have a lot of people watch and cheer. But unfortunately, this time around, it was taken to the Rotunda, which is the biggest hall inside the Capitol. You know, and the reason being that the weather was a bit harsh, and the last time this happened was
blizzard-like conditions.
1985.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you know, it was the last time it happened was in 1985 during President Reagan's inauguration. He had to move inside to be able to take his oath of office. But again, it is what it is, you know. And the manner in which the speech came, you know, of course, he started by basically hitting on Biden's administration's policy, but clearly he set the agenda rolling. Trump obviously talked about issues relating to declaring emergency on the southern border of the U.S., where Mexico is, because he actually claims that, you know, thousands of people, millions of people, illegal immigrants are invading the U.S., you know, from that side. And clearly, he made it a point of duty. You remember, you know, during his first tenure, it was about constructing the wall, you know, between America and Mexico. So he obviously started, you know, I can analyze the speech by saying that this is a continuation of Trump's first-term agenda when he became the 45th president of the United States. And now he's the 47th president, and is basically continuing with the America First agenda. You know, everything Trump wants to talk about, and his entire policy, and you know, the drive towards it's a drive towards America First agenda, which you wouldn't blame him, because clearly it is looking like America is no longer what they used to be. And he sees himself as the Messiah that God has brought, as you know, at a time like this, to be able to restore the glory of America. You know, so clearly he's heavy on immigrations. Clearly he's heavy on ensuring that there are. He repatriates quite a lot. He deports quite a lot of illegal immigrants that are in the United States as it is. He's talked about declaring war on criminals and a lot of gangs that are doing illegal businesses in the U.S. He's talked about emergency on energy. He talked about issues relating to gender. You know, I was on this your studio analyzing issues relating to gender as far as the Nigeria-Samoa agreement, or the Samoa agreement, which Nigeria is a signatory to, is concerned. And that's obviously the relations between the European Union and Africa, as it were, at the time. A lot of Nigerians, you know, were very concerned as to the provision of that agreement that made it, created some, you know, misunderstanding around what gender should be about. And I tried to explain that Nigeria has also made it clear that our understanding of gender is male and female. So a lot of people that are heavy on this issue of gender would be very happy with Trump's presidential address, where he clearly says that in the U.S., only two gender is recognized, and that is male and female. Exactly. And this comes at a time where there is a lot of confusion as to who is transgender, who is this, do you feel like a man in the morning and feel like a woman in the evening? And sometimes, you know, even when you fill forms, if you are making some applications and you're filling forms, maybe in US or in some other places, you know, there are male, female, you know, there's just a lot of confusion around what gender is. So, you know, his agenda is very clear on that, and he's made it very clear. He's also talked about the fact that... He said it's now
the official policy. He said, take it from here, that the official policy in the US is you're either a man or a woman. End of story.
Or a woman. It's as simple as that. And I think that a lot of African countries will be thrilled and will be very happy with this position, because time has come for us to begin to, you know, deal with these issues, factors, and confusions, you know, relating to gender. And for us, it's a very touchy issue for us as a country. You know, even as a continent, because this is not in our culture. We don't recognize some of this behavior that are infiltrating our system, you know, quote and unquote, and it's looking like it's actually the West and the Europeans that are making us adapt to this system. Okay. You know, and then one of the things that is also not written, but it's also very clear, you know, because I followed the inauguration process, you can also see that Trump is the kind of president that will be very strong on bilateral issues. You know, he wants to be able to sit down you know, discussing with countries, because I understand that in this entire program leading to the inauguration, that you know, the European Union were not part of it, and some of the invitations that also went out were restricted for the European Union, clearly signaling that you know, Trump basically have got some aces to grind with the EU. Indeed. You know, so he feels that it's better for him to sit down with countries on a bilateral level and have his deal. He's a businessman, clearly. His interest is to protect America. And I believe that this is also not out of place. He basically made it open to say that, listen, the Gulf of America, the Gulf of Mexico is going to be renamed to the Gulf of America. The area, you know, where America ceded to Panama is now being operated. You know, he says the Chinese are now currently occupying the place, and they're going to take it back.
And he's talking about taking it back.
He also renamed the tallest mountain. Yes, he also renamed the tallest mountain, which President Obama changed to Mount Denali to Mount McKinley, the former American president, and all of that. So there were, it seems to me like he has hit the ground running, and the man that clearly understood what the agenda is and what he wants to do, and he has no apologies about it. And that's why I'm talking about the manner in which the speech came, the content of the speech. They were very clear, speaking to the heart of the issues: America first, deportation issues, remain in Mexico policy, emergency on energy, trying to set up a team that can actually go out and ensure that the prices of goods, which is inflation, is coming down in the United States, yes.
Okay. You know, of course, all of this begins to suggest
yes.
that what can Africans expect from another Trump presidency? I don't know. Trump has never been shy to express himself. He actually described us once, unfortunately, in the most pejorative of terms. You know, I don't know if that was accidental. Sometimes these things happen like that. But I'll come to you for that. But before then, we just have this, we have a visual. Of course, it's a global event. We have a visual of it. So let's take this visual report, and then we'll come back and continue our conversation, especially what Africa can look forward to. Perhaps even Nigeria, what they can look forward to from this time Trump coming on as the 47th president of the U.S.
I, Donald John Trump, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute.
President Trump and his Vice President J.D. Vance took the oath of office at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. due to the freezing temperatures. The first time the ceremony has taken place indoors since the second inauguration of Ronald Reagan in 1985. The event was attended by former President Biden, Vice President Kamala Harris, former President Bill Clinton and his wife, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, and hosts of other public officials. In his inaugural speech, Trump criticized Biden's administration for failure to give attention to America's border, but instead using America's resources to defend foreign nations.
America will soon be greater, stronger, and far more exceptional than ever before. My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal and all of these many betrayals that have taken place, and to give the people back their faith, their wealth, their democracy, and indeed their freedom.
President Trump also announced a number of executive orders to be signed, including the national emergency on southern borders.
All illegal entry will immediately be halted, and we will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came.
On his foreign policy's direction for the next 4 years, President Trump said a golden age begins right now. He announced a flurry of policies, including renaming the Gulf of Mexico as the Gulf of America.
We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end, and perhaps most importantly, the wars we never get into.
In what may have come as a shock to keen observers in U.S. politics, President Trump said his strongest legacy will be to unite the country.
Okay, so most of us have heard it because most Nigerians, not just most Nigerians, most people around the world, Ambassador, our guest Ambassador Elijah Onyeagba has said that the world was watching. Of course, it would be the case. So we've heard it from Trump. And now let's look at what can we reasonably expect, given the person that President Trump is. What can Nigeria, perhaps, but Africa generally, expect from this Trump presidency?
Okay, thank you very much, Uncle Yuri. I think first is that we need to begin to look at how America respects themselves and how they have put America's interests at the front of the banner. This is a big lesson for African leaders. It's important that African leaders begin to put Africa's interests. It's important that Nigerian leaders begin to put our interests at the front burner at every particular point in time. And America has no apologies. President Trump have got no apologies about that. He talked about even going ahead to establish an external revenue service outside America. He wants to be able to tariff products that are coming into the U.S. and ensure that he enriches America from the proceeds that are coming from outside the United States. And this, for me, you can't blame anybody on that, but it's a big lesson. And I think that time has come for us to, as Africans, to begin to look at ourselves and begin to ask ourselves, what do we need to do first to be able to, ensure that we get the respect that we deserve? And it's all about our conduct. It's all about how we go about doing our businesses. A situation where, you find a lot of African leaders getting involved in corrupt practices, moving monies abroad. Recently you see a situation where about $55 million was returned to Nigeria from a loot that, says belongs to a certain person, and the person comes back to again deny it and all of that. So these are resources that are meant to develop the continent and develop the country. And, these funds find themselves or find their ways outside the shores of the continent. So I think it's important that we learn the fact that we need to begin to focus on ourselves, because countries will begin to respect you when you also begin to respect yourself. So this is a big issue for me. And I believe that it is not out of place for President Trump to focus on what he wants to do with America. It's about ensuring that America gets the best deal. You also know that he has also pulled out from World Health Organization, issues relating to, if you remember the time of COVID and all of the controversies surrounding COVID. And he's also pulled out from that relationship. And he's basically saying, listen, there are wars we will need to win. There are wars we will need to end. There are wars we don't even have to get into at the first instance. So these are clear measurement yardsticks that he has actually laid out for his administration. And it's important that from Africa's perspective, I expect a lot of shocks to happen in that relations, and I will explain why. The U.S. foreign policy on Africa, that foreign policy instrument is referred to the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, AGOA. That agreement basically allows a lot of, products to get into the U.S. duty-free, about 1,800 products from some selected African countries. That agreement, I understand, is going to be expiring sometime this year. So I expect that, in trying to renegotiate, Trump will also try and find a way to boss around, the table to be able to say, no, this is going to work for America, this is not going to work for America, and so on. A lot of people have described him or his leadership style as, quote and unquote, being a bully. So I expect a lot of shock. So, from Africa's perspective, I think that we also should begin proactively to begin to think about what we need to do to be able to be sure that whatever we get out of a renegotiated AGOA agreement will be in the interest of Africa as well. So I expect a lot of shock. I expect him to obviously, want to do the things that are of interest to America. And again, I also expect African leaders to also begin to think of the things that we can get out of that agreement that will also be in the interest of Africa as a whole. Because at that level, it's about interest. What is it that you want for your continent or for your country? Everybody wants the best of the deal. So people that are, I'm sure people that are responsible will already begin to look at that to find out, what is it that we can do to ensure that we get the best of the deal. It's not... surprising if shocks comes from any point. I think that anticipation should be there. But we are watching. Incidentally, his inaugural speech didn't delve into detail as to what is in it for Nigeria, for Africa as a whole. But we expect, issues relating to deportation. I expect that maybe some African countries or some African citizens that are in the U.S. will be involved. So we should be expecting backlash from that. Clearly, he's also talked about ending this citizenship by birth from, people that their parents have actually illegally migrated to the United States of America. I'm sure some African citizens will also be in this basket as well. So there will be a lot of, issues that will be at the front burner between now and the next 4 years of the Trump second coming. But we wait and sit down and observe, and then we'll respond accordingly when the need arises. But I think that it will start from us doing what we need to do to ensure that we get respected amongst the Committee of Nations. And once our policies are in that direction, Trump is a businessman. He's looking for deals. He's looking for people he's going to enter into deals that will favor America. So that is not out of place. Also of note is, you know, there was this policy that, you know, electric vehicles are now going to be the ones that are going to be manufactured and used in the United States. And he also reversed that because in as much as EVs are also very important, America is big in the manufacturing of vehicles. They do a lot in Chevrolet, they do a lot in General Motors and all of that. So he's saying, no, once you're doing this, this policy is going to negatively affect the economy of the United States. People are working in those auto industries and so on and so forth. So you can't just, have a policy that ensures that, makes that transition very difficult, and all of that. So a lot has happened in the course of his presentation. For Africa, I think that we need to wait for our own shocks. We need to brace ourselves for several changes that are likely to happen in the next 4 years. We will not go toe-to-toe fighting on issues, but we will sit down and watch what happens. There are quite a lot of foreign policy instruments that the U.S. uses for the U.S.-African relations. So we'll wait and see, adjust where necessary, but I think that times are for the better for America and also for the world, because we agree with Trump on several issues. Take, for example, the issue of this issue of gender. A lot of African countries stands with him, clearly. Whatever influence we're having from Europe and all of that, clearly it's everybody was clapping for him yesterday when he made that pronunciation. So I believe and I hope that as we delve into other issues, immigration issues, issues relating to deportation of people, issues relating to ensuring that he gets the best deal as far as trade policies are concerned, and other foreign policy instruments, we will wait and see. But I'm quite certain that we will also try to get our own best deal while relating with the United States.
Indeed, we will have to wait and see. But as you know, Trump has framed himself as a victim of government weaponization. He's been, and in fact, he was quite aggressive, relatively speaking, at this particular inaugural speech. Even as he's, the person he's taking over from, even as they were there, sitting right there in the same venue, he didn't pull his shots. He spoke his mind. But this whole matter about being a victim and taking a jab at what he called radical and corrupt establishment. He was describing the American government, not a third world government, as you might think without context. He was actually calling America, a radical and corrupt establishment. And he was saying that, well, his election, what it has done is to come and reverse those bad times, a horrible betrayal. And from this moment, using his words exactly, from this moment, the moment of his inauguration, America's decline is over. There's something of a showman in the president himself. So he does use this for his MAGA concept, make America great again.
Well, you see, Uncle Yori, President Trump is not, what he said yesterday was really expected. I'm quite very confident that even Trump, himself, even President Biden and Kamala Harris, were also expecting that. He's not a man that is shy from making difficult statements or making controversial statements. His records are there for everybody to see. So I was also expecting those kind of jabs to come from him. In fact, if you listen to the second speech he made to Trump supporters, where the governor of Texas was present and quite a lot of congressmen and women that are strong Trump supporters, the second speech he made, which was in fact longer than the first speech he gave, he basically was talking about the fact that he was asked to ensure that he makes a unifying speech. And that second speech actually had some of the issues he wanted to talk about, during his inaugural speech. He's not a man that is shy from making those kind of comments, but he's also gotten himself into trouble with speech making over the years, even in his first term of administration. But you see, I am not very surprised at what happened. He was always talking about how to drain the swamp in Washington. He's always talking about, speaking against the establishment and the corruption and that is going on in Washington and so on and so forth. But I'm also very reserved to say that, well, the turf is yours now. implement, because talk is, to talk or to criticize anything is the easiest part. It's time to begin to do. He has also started doing. So we wish him all the best, but there's no surprises with respect to some of the things he said. I mean, he would tell you, Trump would tell you his issue with you, and he would tell it to your face. So he wasn't shy of, reversing any of the policies, and of course, very critical of some of the actions that were taken by the Biden administration, particularly the one that has to do with the preemptive pardon that Trump gave in the morning of the inauguration. He was actually very critical of that, but hey, it is still within his powers to do at the time.
In fact, both of them.
Now is his time. Whatever he wants, he can do that as a president.
Exactly, but both of them have been into this kind of, on the one hand, there's the preemptive, what is the word now? Immunity from prosecution. Pardon. That's it. Thank you.
Yes.
There's a preemptive pardon. I just don't know how that one is going to work. But this is America. I'll tell you what, Ambassador. We'll take a break. Okay, I hear that Mr. George has been waiting for a while, so we'll take Mr. George's call, and then after that we'll go on a break and we'll come back, react to it, and take other calls.